Hello everyone and welcome to today's NAA iSeries webinar. I'm Curtis Kitchen, the Director of Publications and Trade Show for the National Auctioneers Association, and I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us for today's newest iSeries installment. iSeries is a free informational webinar series produced by the NAA in order to share auction industry knowledge and insight with NAA members and the general public. We are excited to present today's topic, but before we dive into today's highly anticipated session on bid calling with purpose, we want to share a little more with you about who we are as NAA. Headquartered in Overland Park, Kansas, the NAA represents the interest of thousands of auctioneers in the United States, Canada, and across the world. NAA is dedicated to providing its members with educational programming and resources to help them advance themselves as professional auctioneers. Our members are an active, thriving group who abide by a strict code of ethics and are connected locally, regionally, and nationally to an extensive network of auction professionals. The NAA exists in order to provide critical resources to auction professionals that will enhance their skills and successes so that its members are the preferred auction professionals used in the marketplace. Among those critical resources is the iSeries, and today's session will focus on and discuss one of the most crucial elements to the auction method of marketing and how to make sure you're on top of your game. Bid Calling with Purpose is presented today by 2014 NAA International Auctioneers Championship men's winner Jason Miller. Jason is a partner at Kaufman Realty and Auctions and Kaufman Minerals and Natural Resources. As a third-generation auctioneer and licensed real estate agent, Jason graduated from Worldwide College of Auctioneering and received his auction license in 1999. He earned the Certified Auctioneer Institute designation in 2010 at Indiana University. He is past president of the Ohio Auctioneers Association, a member of the National Auctioneers Association, the Ohio and National Board of Realtors, the Ohio Oil and Gas Association, and the U.S. Oil and Gas Association. I mentioned that twice. I'm sorry about that. Aside from winning IAC, Jason is also the 2008 Ohio Auctioneer Champion and won the West Virginia Championship in 2012. He has been an instructor at places such as Worldwide College of Auctioneering and the Ohio Auction School, and has presented advanced auction courses at State Auctioneer Association conventions. At his direction, Kaufman has pioneered the sale of oil and gas mineral rights, timberland, and oil field equipment in the Midwest. Jason also works as a contract auctioneer selling heavy equipment, purebred cattle, and doing other high-end specialty auctions across the country. Because of all of that experience, we are extremely honored that Jason is able to present to you today. Before he begins, please note that you may submit questions at any time during the presentation. These questions will then be asked during our brief Q&A period following the conclusion of today's presentation. You can take part in the conversation by typing your question and submitting it. A little later, we will also ask you to please take part in a very short 3-question poll toward the end as well. With that, we are extremely pleased to hand things over to Jason. Please take it away.
Well, thank you, Curtis, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm certainly delighted to spend a few minutes with you this afternoon. Today is my wife and I's 15th wedding anniversary, and I couldn't think of anything I'd rather do than give a presentation on bid calling to all of you. So I'm delighted to have you here. Certainly, when I think of auctions, and I think when the public thinks of auctions, the very first thing that comes to mind is the chant of an auctioneer. And to me, since I was a child, as Curtis mentioned, I am a third-generation auctioneer. It's always been music to my ears to sit down and to listen to a strong chant and a strong bid call. And so I think that with the advent of technology in the last 15 years, we've seen a lot of growth in that side with online auctions becoming part of the norm. But I think that as long as there's still bid callers, dynamic bid callers, and auctions, that they will be a very, very vibrant part of the auction industry, and I'm certainly a purist when it comes to the bid calling side. My presentation this afternoon is titled Bid Calling with Purpose. I love the word purpose because there's intentionality there, and it's about getting better, and it's about keeping continually improving. I heard a man say years ago that we're either green and growing or we're ripe and rotting. So I think all professionals should continually strive to become better, to be a better auctioneer the next time we climb up behind the microphone than when we were yesterday. As Curtis mentioned, if you want to send a question, use the chat function at the right of your screen. Send those in, and we'll try to get to them if we can. my first slide, as you can see, says it starts between your ears. And that was a lesson that I learned, and part of what taught me that was competing. And I started competing at the state level and had some success. But when I went to the national or regional level, I didn't have that success. The very first time I competed was in 2005 and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, when the NAA was there, my very first IEC competition. And I found out later that I was pretty sure I was knocking on the door and making that top 15. Was very disappointed when the finals were announced. That was back in the days before the leaderboard, and my name wasn't called. And later I found out that I had finished out of 60 some gentlemen competing, I finished 43rd. So not very close to that cutoff line. So what changed for me with being fortunate enough to win it in Louisville last year? What changed? My chant is still the same chant. I'm still the same person, but what changed is my attitude. And I realized that I had to become a different person. I had to become more of the person that I wanted to be. And that started with realizing that it wasn't all about me. I wasn't out to beat you name the person. If we go into a contest thinking we've got to beat so-and-so in order to be successful, then we're not in it for the right reasons. But when I realized that the competition would make me a better auctioneer, that would then in turn make me a better fit for my clients and have me work harder and do a better job for them, my attitude changed. And then it became about competing against me. Could I calm my nerves? Could I have the focus to work on something between contests that would improve me, make me better? And so that made me also a better auctioneer for my clients and customers when I got up behind the microphone. Next slide. First, we want to talk about intentionally building and improving our chant. Henry Ford said that whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And so that comes back to belief or attitude. Confidence comes from repetition. And by that I mean if we practice something often enough, long enough, we gain confidence in doing so. The first time you tried to ride a bike, it didn't go very well. But as you practiced and as you got good at it, as your balance improved, you figured out how to do this, and then it came easy. You don't have to think. And that's where we need to be with our numbers. I'm sure there's veteran auctioneers on here, but for the folks getting into the industry, the great John Nichols said, if you have to think, you're dead. And what he means is you have to react. We have to know what the next number is. We have to know what to do in any given situation. It's got to pop in. We can't be thinking about what we're saying. We can't be thinking about our chant. We can't be thinking about how we sound. Our sole focus needs to be on the asset that we're selling for our client or customer and how we can get the most dollars out of that. And that comes from being confident in our chant and having our preparation and our prep work done prior to getting on the block and not practicing on our client or customer. We have to believe that we belong on the block. And that, again, that comes from confidence. Confidence comes from dogged preparation. That's how you get to the point of knowing you belong there, believing you belong there, and being able to do an effective job for whoever you're selling for, whether you're a contract auctioneer or whether you contract to do an estate sale where you clean out the house or whatever you're selling. We're not going to get there overnight. Overnight success is seldom sustained, and so I think if we put in the time to get to where we want to be, then we're going to have a better plateau, and we're going to continue to grow at a measured rate, and where we are more comfortable at that pace. And I believe that you must be before you can do. That again comes back to attitude. You must be before you can do. We're going to look at what I call the 3 P's of success. Next slide, please. And the 3 P's to me are perseverance, practice, and patience. Not necessarily in that order, but that's the order we're going to look at them. Next slide. Again, we're talking about intentionally building and improving our chant. Perseverance. We have to continue. And if that for you is number drills, if that for you is tongue twisters to get to where you want to be, then that's what you need to do. And I've had young auctioneers tell me, well, I tried out. I tried out for XYZ company, and they said they couldn't use me. They said they didn't need me. Well, to me, rejection is simply motivation to improve. So if you weren't good enough, and maybe it wasn't about you not being good enough, maybe it was about the need at that situation, at that auction bar, at that auction company, whatever the situation was. But get better from that. The same thing, it makes sense to me in a contest. If you didn't finish where you wanted to finish, my question is, did you learn something from it? Did you grow? If you went to an auction contest and didn't have the success you wanted, but you didn't pick up an area that you need to improve in, then again, it goes back to is what's between your ears. Fix your attitude, and you'll be amazed at the opportunities you'll have. Rejection gives you additional opportunities. If you got hired the first time you went out, you wouldn't have a chance to go get in front of other people and show your wares, showcase your skills. Real briefly, a quick story on a friend of mine from West Virginia. His name is Kevin Teets. Many of you at the NAA know him. He has no background in the auction industry other than he loved the chant of an auctioneer. And he wanted to work for a large company named Joe Pyle Auction Service. And so Kevin went down, and Joe Pyle has a couple of auto auctions. And every week or two, Kevin would show up at the auto auction, and he'd show up in Joe's office, and he said, hey, I want to work for you. I don't want to work at your auto auction. I want to work on your auction company side, the private treaty and the traditional real estate auction side. That's where I want to work. And Joe would say, well, do you have any experience in the auction industry? He said, no, but this is what I want to do. This is where my passion is. I love auctions, and I will help you grow. And a week later, he'd be there again, and Joe would say, how do you even get into my building? I have security here. This is a dealer-only facility. How do you get in here? Make a long story short, Kevin got hired by Joe. That company grew, and I think they experienced success that they hadn't prior to that point. And so there, Kevin, by being persistent, not taking rejection personal, but we have to bring value to a situation before someone will hire us. If we just want to get hired for us because it'll help us, that's really not, it has to be a mutually beneficial situation in order for someone to hire you. If I don't bring value, why would they hire me? Practice. Practice is a big one. I think I practice daily. I think practice should be focused, and it should be very specific. So by that I mean, if you're struggling with if you want to use a particular filler word or filler phrase or marketing phrase, whatever you call them, and if it doesn't pop off your tongue, you either need to find a way to say it that it does, or you need to find a different filler word to put in. If you're struggling with a particular number, a lot of folks have trouble with 6s and 7s. I personally have trouble with 6s. So I try to figure out a way that I can say it that it sounds like a 6, but I may not be saying 6. For me, the 9, a 9 is too much of a muffled sound coming off my tongue, so I say dine with a D, like D-I-N-E. But in the chant, it sounds like 9. I eat them, dine, 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 but it's crisp. It pops off my tongue. So figure out what you're working on. So if you are focused and specific with your practice, I think you won't have that boredom. You won't. This is just old Adam driving down the road and taking a bit every time I see a telephone pole. No, be specific and be working on getting better with some part of your chant that needs to improve. Professionals still practice. Several years ago at an NAA function, at a fund auction, Spanky Hassler was asked to get up and sell an item for someone, and Spank got up, went out, walked. I saw him in the halls, walking the halls, pacing the halls, and actually loosening up. He was actually getting ready to get up on the block just to go sell someone's item. It was going to take him 45 seconds to a minute max, and yet he went out and he loosened up. I think you should always have a pre-game or pre-shot routine, is what I call it. And I go through specific steps. Some of it is lost by the medium that we're using here to communicate, but I will warm up. I'll warm up my face. I'll make sure I do some breathing exercises every day. Driving down the road, I'll do breathing. I breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, and I count 7 coming in, and I count 11 going out. You want to make sure that you're exhaling longer than your inhale is, and that builds lung capacity. That builds that endurance that you need when you get up on the block. No marathon runner would ever think about getting out and running without stretching, without loosening up, without getting ready to go. So why should an auctioneer, why should we think we can jump up on the block, get behind the microphone and sell for an hour and a half or 3 hours or whatever our situation calls for that day without getting ready, without getting our muscles ready. You know, vocal cords, tongue, mouth, all that needs to be loosened up and ready to go. So I'll do the breathing exercise on the way into the auction every day, and then whether I have an auction or not, I do those. Then prior to an auction, I always do, I warm up my face. And part of that is kind of chewing while I'm exhaling, and when my entire face moves, I get it warm, get it going, get those muscles loosened. I do a tongue twister that has a lot of bees in it. A big brown bug bit, a big brown bear, all bees. And what that does, I'll do that for 2 minutes, and that gets my lips to where they're actually almost stinging. And because you need that for your chant to pop off of it. And then, of course, I like to do the hum to get the vocal cords warmed up too, and have that ready to go. Now, if I don't do that and get up on the block, I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I'm not quite ready to go. So there again, it goes back to what I talked about earlier about having that confidence, about knowing we're ready, about knowing we belong. So if I warm up mentally, it helps me know that yes, I am ready to go, and yes, I am ready for the long haul, and I've done everything I can to get loosened up and get ready. And we also, as auctioneers, we have to have that unique ability to, when we climb on the block, everything else that might be going on in our life needs to be compartmentalized and put off to the side. It doesn't matter if your cat's sick, your dog's sick, if you're having other issues. If you're healthy enough to be at that auction, then you really need to be giving your all to whoever you're working for that day. So get everything else out of your mind and focus only on the asset that you're selling. And again, we talked about don't focus on how am I sounding. What does this sound like? Do that while you're practicing. When you get on the block, the last thing you should worry about is what I sound like. Now, the exception to that would be if you have a bad sound system, make sure that you should know prior to getting on the block if that's going to be fine and ready for you. But everything else needs to go out the door. So develop a pregame ritual. Develop what works for you. It'll help you physically, and I believe it'll help you mentally to know that you're ready, know that you're prepared to roll. Next slide. Patience. This is probably one that we overlook the most and one that we don't think about that we need, but we really do. We need to be patient with ourselves. You know, no one, we've heard the word, I'm my own worst critic, and too often we are. And I've heard statistics tell us that 83% of what you tell yourself is negative. So my question to you is, why would you want to hang out with somebody who's negative 83% of the time? So be a little nicer to yourself. Be a little patient. If you're not where you want to be, if you don't sound like you want to sound, if your chant has not developed to where you want to be at, maybe you just need to have more patience. Maybe you just need more time to develop that. Maybe you need more microphone time. Selling, you know, if someone thinks that if you're an up-and-coming auctioneer still trying to crack the code, if someone puts a microphone in your face, sell. But be patient. But keep working to improve. And it's certainly more difficult to be patient with yourself than it is with others, it seems. But be patient with others, and that would come into if you're trying to get a job with a particular company or auction house, auction barn, automobile auction, whatever venue or whatever niche in the auction industry you're trying to get into. Be patient with those folks and continue to show how you bring value to the equation. If you're the only one benefits from them hiring you, then there's really no reason for them to hire you. But if you can bring value to the equation, then there's absolutely all kinds of reason for them to give you an opportunity. And patience, again, allows steady growth. If we're patient, we can continue to grow. We don't get impatient if it doesn't, and we'll have setbacks. You know, there'll be days. I still have days when I'm wondering if I even know how to count to 10. Some days it just doesn't work for whatever reason. Some days it's just not coming. It's just not rolling. It's a battle. You have to fight for every breath. You have to fight for every word, every digit. But just be patient, and then come back the next day. Come back the next day strong and ready to go, and be patient with yourself and those around you. Curtis, I believe that concludes my slide presentation. If you have a couple of questions ready for me, I'd be happy to go into those for you.
Sure, Jason. Thanks so much for your insight and knowledge on the topic. As you mentioned, if you haven't already, for those folks listening, if you do have a couple of questions, feel free to submit those, and we'll get through as many as we can here over the next minute or a couple of minutes anyway. Looks like the first question, Jason, is you've been talking more in a general sense, but let's talk about the IAC a little bit, or another contest. What's a good tip that someone can use to help prepare for those?
Great question, Curtis. First of all, what I would say is let's put it this way. I've heard people say, I didn't know what the judges were looking for, or what were the judges looking for. Well, I'm here today. This was worth the price of admission. I'm going to give you the secret to what the judges are looking for. I don't care which contest you're in, if it's a state contest, if it's the IAC, but know your scorecard. Know what the judge's score sheet looks like, because the secret to what the judges are looking for is what's on the score sheet. They're going to score. I've never met a judge yet who didn't do his very best to score every category on the contestant scorecard to the best of their ability. So if you're competing in the IAC in July in Texas, I encourage you, your information packet from the NEA is going to have a copy of that scorecard in it. Know every category and hit every category. Develop your performance to make sure that you address every category. One of the categories in the IAC scorecard is salesmanship. If you don't display salesmanship during your auctioning of your two items, how are they going to score you on salesmanship if you haven't shown any? So the best tip I think I could give is to know the scorecard, the score sheet, whatever you want to call it, and know it inside out, backwards and forward, and then make sure that you address every one of those categories during your time on the stage.
Second question here is, how can someone avoid a rut in their chant, or maybe another stumbling block like that? How do they keep things fresh when they're selling?
Well, there again, I think what really helps you is to go back and listen, take yourself and listen to what you did, and then make sure if you have the same lead-in prior to every item, that's a rut. That's what I consider a rut. If you have to use the same filler words between every increment to get to the next one, that's a rut. Filler words or filler phrases, marketing phrases, whatever you want to call them, they're there to use when the bidding slows down. If the bidding is brisk and rabbit hands everywhere, kick them out, delete them, get going, get up the ladder. Don't use them, but then you have a repertoire and a rotation of that repertoire to use when the bidding slows down. So record yourself, know what you say on your lead-in, and don't do the same thing all day long, because that really does get boring. If you're selling for 2 hours in one hitch and you say the same 6 words before you start selling every item, and you have to use the same filler word between increments, but if we don't listen to ourselves, we may not know we're doing it. So listen to yourself, and then be conscious and be purposeful in getting those kicked out and making sure that you rotate that.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, everyone, for your questions. That's going to wrap up today's Q&A portion of today's event. Thank you to all of you who did submit questions, and we apologize if we weren't able to get to yours now. We have collected the questions, and we will forward them to Jason so that he might have an opportunity to answer your question later via email. So thank you again for that. Moving on, first, thanks again, Jason, for your time. We appreciate that today. Moving on now to some other things here at iSeries for today's session. It's time now for you as attendees to give us your feedback on the session. Please see the poll on your screen and answer the questions as they appear. We'll move fairly quickly, so please answer as swiftly as you're able. Your first question of 3. The first question today is, I have learned something here through Jason's presentation that I plan to use the next time I call bids. It's a very simple yes or no question. We'll give you, probably 10 seconds or so to go ahead and answer that for us now. And we'll give it just a few more seconds here. Okay, so that'll be it for the first question. We'll move on to the second question. And that one is, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score and 1 being the lowest score, how would you rate today's iSeries presentation? And again, 5 being the best, 1 being the not best. We'll give you just a few seconds here to answer that question as well. And again, we thank you for your feedback. It really does help us with direction and planning for future iSeries. So, okay, so we'll go ahead and close that question now. And the final question in today's poll: are you planning to attend a designation course in Addison prior to conference and show? And of course, this is going out to those folks who are planning on joining us in Addison. And if you haven't made that call yet, absolutely, we would love to see you be a part. We'll see how it's going here. We'll give it a few more seconds. Again, are you planning to attend a designation course in Addison prior to conference and show? And again, we appreciate the feedback on that as well. Give it just a few more seconds. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that now, and thank you for taking part in the survey. Again, we really, really do appreciate the feedback that you provide through our questions here. Before we end today's session, please note that we're hoping you can build off of what you've heard from Jason in today's iSeries session. You can do that in your daily business, of course, but we also want to encourage you, those of you who are thinking about it, Jason mentioned it, and it came up in the Q&A as well, to take part in the 2015 NAA IAC competition. That competition will take place on Friday, July 17th during conference and show in Addison. For more information or if you have questions, please contact Joyce Peterson at 913-563-5439, 913-563-5439, or you can email Joyce at jpeterson@auctioneers.org. A couple of other quick closing items here for you today. You will get a replay of today's session through an emailed link by the end of this week. So if you weren't able to catch all of it, if you'd like to go back and listen to something Jason had to say in his presentation, again, you'll get a replay of today's session through an emailed link by the end of this week. And also, if you've missed any other previous iSeries sessions, we have those available. We do have a full archive section. We've actually been doing iSeries now for almost a full year, so that's pretty exciting stuff. And we've shared a lot of good information across a wide range of topics and things, both directly associated with the auction industry and really past that too in terms of marketing as well. So feel free to absolutely go back and check out any of the archives that we've done through iSeries. You can find those on the NAA website at auctioneers.org/NAA-education. That was auctioneers.org/NAA-education. You will need to be logged in to access those, so we absolutely encourage you to take advantage of that. And our next iSeries webinar will be Wednesday, July 1st with Tim Luke. I know several of you in the audience have probably been familiarized with Tim's work, or at least have seen Tim's name in places around NAA circles. He will be presenting on appraisals on Wednesday, July 1st, so we absolutely encourage you to take advantage of that as well. We'll send you more information specific to that event and others in the near future.